But you can make a quick buck in Dubai, there's no doubt about that. You can come here for a year, but it'll only last a year.
I remember my first sale actually, and I was just, because everything's just cold calling and just nothing was happening, and I was thinking, is this even real? Like, can you actually just call someone and sell a property? I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And I remember just calling one guy in the UK, because it was about 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I just gave it to him, like really, really pitched hard on this Palm Views studios. They weren't handed over yet, so they were new.
Yeah. How much were they? Like 900 at the time?
About $1 million.
Yeah.
About $1 million. I think like, $1.02 million or something. And told him how good of an investment it was. And he went, sounds great. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what to do next.
Yeah, what,
I was like, what the hell? I remember putting the phone down and like running around the office. No one else was there. I was like, what the hell? And then I called Wes, who was the manager, and I was like, okay, what do I do now? I need to understand. And then, I remember Arnie rented the property off the guy.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Do you know what? If you held on to one of those units,
I know.
Fantastic.
It's crazy, yeah.
Airbnb really now.
But
amazing.
I remember, so then from that point, market was just going down and down and down. And I always felt like I was helping the sellers get out of a bad situation. Mm-hmm. And then when the market shifted, it was hard mentally to shift and kind of see it as the buyers are getting a really good deal.
Yeah.
I still kind of felt like sellers are getting out, and I found it easier to really convince the sellers that it's a good time.
Yeah.
But obviously it wasn't. After COVID, it was like a bad time for sellers to get out. But
I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. That's the beautiful thing about the situation.
You just have to do the best you can in the moment for both sides, and the market's going to be the market, right?
It's funny, going back to like when we first started, people would ask you your opinion, and you'd probably go into a good half-hour spiel about how you felt the market was and where you think it's going to go. And realistically, in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? Because
you don't know.
We don't know.
No one knows.
You know, we went into a 10-year decline in 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just post-COVID that it went up. In fact, you talk about first customers. One of my first customers bought a Palm Views as well. It wasn't his first purchase, but one thing for me was always customer service, and I know it is for you as well. And building those relationships, people come back to you. One of my first customers is still a friend of mine to this very day. We meet up, not as much as we used to, but we meet up regularly, and I've been here 12 years. One of my first mortgages, he's done 4 or 5 transactions with me. And for me, it's not about commission, it's about that relationship. And now when I help him out, it's because it's my friend. It was a customer, now become a friend. But it's amazing to see that if you do put in that good effort at the start, the good customer service, put the decisions and the interest of the customer at heart, at the forefront of the decision, they'll always come back.
I watched something the other day, and it was Rory Sutherland, and he talked about, have you heard of him?
I've not.
Marketing guy, Ogilvy Marketing, and he talked about, there was the #1 car salesman in America, whoever he was.
Sorry, I think I do know who you're talking about,
Rory Sutherland. Quite interesting the way he approached when he looks at some situations, and he said, look, the guy would never think about how to sell the first car. His approach was, how do I sell this guy his next car? So what he would do is, like you said, build relationships, build trust. But one thing what I thought was interesting, what he'd say, what do you want the car for? And then it'd be like, just family, general, going to work stuff. It's like, well, you don't need these extra packages. Rather than everybody else in the office was selling the extra packages to get the better commissions, he was doing the opposite and like reducing stuff, which builds massive trust. And then he, after his first 3 years, didn't look great. But then because of the relationships he got from giving the right kind of, putting the client's interests first, and it's just
it's exactly that. I mean, that 3 years was our first 3 years, wasn't it? Where, certainly for me, went through the struggles, went through the trials, tribulations of trying to get your sales numbers up. But you can make a quick buck in Dubai, there's no doubt about that. You can come here for a year, you can make a lot of money, but it'll only last a year, maybe 2 at a push. But if you want to be here for 5, 10...
You're on that wheel because every deal needs to be a new client, because you can't, you don't have relationships, because people don't trust you, they're not coming back to you, they feel like that you've screwed them in some way. And it might be a year after you've done the deal, but they'll speak to a friend and they'll be like, that you paid over the market for that, or you, whatever. You paid extra commission you didn't even know.
I believe a big testament to a good service and good service that you've provided is your customer recommending you to friends. When we look at our business right now as it stands, around about 30 to 35% of our business is through recommendation. not through agents, but from old customers recommending friends to us. And even to this day, the amount of effort that I've put in the past, directly the amount of business that I get coming to me through recommendation, I'd like to think I could probably survive off that if I was to go back to brokering.
That's it. Once you've got to like the point that you have, realistically, no matter what happens, you've got those guys that are gonna be referring you and transacting. That's the idea.